Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. Chelsea face Liverpool tomorrow night in the Premier League, and we're going over Enzo Maresca's pre-match press conference, where he talks about the impact of Badashile, the improvements of Marc Guiu, and gives us an injury update. Not only that, but the club have said why they didn't sign a centre-back in the summer transfer window after the injury of Levi Colwill, and we're going to be predicting Chelsea's starting 11. Now, of course, I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. If you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, we are on the road to 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. You can also use the hype button, which is a new YouTube feature which helps pushes these videos out to a bigger audience. Kicking things off, Bobby Vincent has reported what Enzo Maresca said when he was asked, is it a good time to play Liverpool? And he says, I don't think now it is better to play Liverpool. It is always a tough game, always a big team. The way that they are doing the season in any case is fantastic, especially after the Jota tragedy. I lived the exact time when I was a player 20 years ago, and it is not easy for the players or manager. You have to be very strong. This is a reason for me why they are doing not good, but better than good, because dealing with a problem like that is not easy. He continues to talk about Liverpool's games last season. He said, yes, we played both games very good. We lost there and won at home. Every game is different. We are going to try and prepare the game in the best way possible. Even if they've dropped points, they have shown the reason why they've won the Premier League. He goes on to talk about the defence against Liverpool, and he says, again, I think it is a fact that I really trust the young players. Not just the ones we buy, but the ones from the academy. Josh Ashampong has played, and that shows I trust young players. In this moment, I think we have 4 or 5 defenders out. We are going to try and adapt and find the right solution for tomorrow. He then talks about the offside trap and how it's evolved from last season. He says, it's just to try and continue to evolve. As you said, our defensive line was very good last season. You always have to try and evolve, add things, and do things better. We are trying to do the same. He then talks about speaking to players about discipline. He says you have to analyse case for case. When it's a red card for bad intentions or bad discipline, then it is different compared to Brighton or Manchester United red cards. It's a decision you have to take in 1 or 2 seconds. It's difficult. I don't see any discipline problem, even if we concede 3 or 4 red cards. He then goes on to talk about Chelsea's form, and he says, I think we started very, very well in terms of results and performance. The first 4 or 5 games, and then the rest of the games, we didn't get the points that we wanted, for sure, but we already analysed the reason why. Most of the games we didn't get the points were because of the red cards. Also, the injury situation. We have 8 players out. It's a mixed combination, but we don't have any doubt that slowly we will be again where we need to be. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, talking about how Liverpool, why they won the Premier League last season, how much of a dominant force they are, winning games late this season, but they've also shown vulnerability in terms of teams going on and beating them. And then for Chelsea's case, Enzo thinks that we've started very well and the results have been great. And when you factor in the things that he has to deal with on a day-to-day, in terms of 8 players being out, in terms of the red cards, in terms of the game management, as fans, it's very easy for us to get frustrated and annoyed that we don't win games and we drop in points. And honestly, I agree. The Brentford game was just a shocking way to drop points. There's been other games that we've played this season where we've just not looked great. We've tried to grinding out results and getting it over the line, or ultimately drawing or losing games down to individual errors, red cards, and also injuries where we've been thin in certain areas of the pitch. I think when you balance it out, Chelsea haven't started as bad as everyone seems to think. I think we have started relatively well. Now, on paper, you go, well, look at the first 5 or 6 results. You should be getting wins in all of those. And yes, I get it. But again, when you dig deeper with the injuries, the individual mistakes, the red cards and everything like that, I think we could have done worse. That's what I'm saying. I think we could have done worse from the results that we've already got. Yes, obviously we wanted more points on the board, and there have been positions in the game where we should have been going on to get to the 3 points, but we haven't. And the game's the game. It is what it is. Like Enzo's saying, you have to analyse everything as per performance and, case by case with the red cards. And look, I think Benfica was another showcasing of how Chelsea can play well. We can go on the front foot. We can put pressure onto teams and ultimately see a game out where we're not playing at the best. First half, I thought we were really, really good. Big difference in terms of how we have been playing in previous games, right? Being sluggish and lethargic and not really knowing where other players are and no patterns of play. But the passing was crisp. We looked very intense. We were pressing high. We were doing everything we needed to do in that first half against Benfica, and we go in 1-0 up. And it was like, okay, cool. If we could just continue like this for the second half, we get the 3 points. And we did. Ultimately, of course, obviously, João Pedro gets sent off in injury time, which is another silly mistake in terms of making the referee have to make a decision because of something he did, which, yes, I know he didn't make contact, and I believe the UEFA are rescinding that red card. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't found any sort of credible sources, but there have been whisperings of that, which would be great for us if that is the case. But I do kind of, agree with Maresca in terms of Liverpool have had to be dealing with a lot. They have been dealing with so much, obviously, with the Jota stuff, which is just terrible, and we've spoke about that a few times, and obviously, coming on and, defending a Premier League title is always difficult. We've been there a couple times. We've been successful, been unsuccessful in doing that. So we've seen it from both angles. And obviously with our sort of run of form and the circumstances, I don't think there is a good time to play Liverpool unless they are going in and they've got 4 or 5 injuries. Then great, you play a weakened Liverpool team. But they have also shown vulnerability. They have also shown when they play clubs like Crystal Palace that have that box midfield that Enzo tries to play. And when you pin back their midfield of McAllister and Gravenberch, they become very, very vulnerable because their centre-backs don't want to step up. They want to stay as centre-backs. They're comfortable with the ball, they're comfortable defending, but they don't want to step up and they don't want to be pulled out of their position too much. And I feel like Chelsea do have a very good opportunity here to go on and actually get something out of this game, whether it's a draw or 3 points. And I don't know why, I just feel very confident because, again, when you see the likes of Benoit Badiashile, we're going to speak about him in a second in terms of his impact. I was really surprised about his performance against Benfica, and I feel like he will be starting against Liverpool. And Achimpong is going to get a massive chance because Trevor Chalobah is suspended, and we have a myriad of injuries in that position. So I kind of agree with what Maresca's saying. I'm not saying that everything he's saying is gospel. There's also caveats to everything. Yes, there are games that I don't feel like we've played well. We've just kind of turned up and gave like a half-hearted performance. But again, I don't see these guys train week in, week out, day in, day out, and understand the full, DNA of how the clubs work. So I get it from Maresca's point of view. He does see those things. I feel like we should have performed better in different games and got more points for sure. But it's not the end of the world in terms of where we are and the results we have got, considering the circumstances. And I'm hoping, like Maresca said, that slowly we get back to it because players start coming back from injury. Hopefully we won't get any more injuries on top of that. There is just a lot of injuries right now, and obviously the individual mistakes do need to shore up. And if you remember rightly, this time last season, we had this same problem, but it was with a specific player. Well, actually, kind of the back line too. You had a lot of individual mistakes, Sanchez with errors leading to goals, and some defenders kind of putting them under pressure and vice versa, which obviously led to goals as well. And then by sort of December time, that started shoring up. Yes, we weren't getting the results over the line, but we were playing better and there was less mistakes. It was just a case of, at the front end, of not being clinical enough and not actually taking our chances. So we're kind of seeing a mirror of last season, right, in terms of the individual errors, and hopefully they dry up sooner rather than later. And I think Benfica was a good showcasing of when there's no individual mistakes and we keep 11 men on the pitch, we are a completely different team. So as long as we can do that against Liverpool, I feel like we actually have a very good chance. Liverpool are going to have a weakened side. I think Alisson is injured. I think they may have a couple other injuries here and there. But also they rested the likes of Isak and Salah and stuff like that. So it's not going to be an easy game by any stretch. But look, we played them last season and everyone said that they were drunk and we beat them 3-1 at home. I feel like we just played very well. And yes, they'd already won the league, but that does play a factor. But I think they just rolled over for the sake of it. They actually tried playing at times in that game. Tomorrow's going to be a different story. And I really do think that Chelsea go at it from the, on the front foot. At being at home, I feel like we can get something out of this game. But I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions regarding what Enzo Maresca said on the form, Liverpool playing them at the right time, etc. Very curious to know your thoughts. Enzo Maresca then goes on to talk about Benoit Badiashile's impact. He said, "Since I joined the club, every time I talk about Benoit, he is an important player. Unfortunately, he has been injured a few times. Before the last injury, he was playing almost every game. Now he is back. It is good news for us, for the teammates, and especially for him." Like I just said previously, very, very impressed with Benoit Badiashile's performance against Benfica. He almost did that Levi Colwill role and surprised me in terms of how confident and calm he was on the ball. The line-breaking passes were very good, and how it kind of reassured that back line in terms of positioning and not panicking and making these individual errors. I think he had a very good game. Not saying that he came in and he was Van Dijk, for sure, but it was a massive step up from what we've had in the centre-back pairing of Chalobah and Tosin recently, where they've both been shaky, either one or the other, in different games, right? So I feel like Benoit is obviously more of a natural left-sided centre-back. He will be playing against Liverpool. And I feel like the partner will be Josh Achimpong, and that'll be very interesting with someone who's a little bit older, in terms of Benoit Badiashile being a little bit older, little bit more experienced, nothing massive, but partnering with someone like Josh, who's very young, coming into that first team, playing more minutes, very technically good on the ball. Hopefully he's not as shaky in terms of in possession and losing it in silly areas, which is going to happen as a youngster. You're going to make mistakes. But defensively, this kid is so solid. So it'll be very interesting to see how he deals with someone like Isak or Salah at times. And even like Gravenberch and their midfielders coming forward, McAllister, Szoboszlai, players like that. because he dealt with Mateta. And again, I'll always reference this because he's such a youngster. Dealing with Mateta and nullifying his threat is a big deal that I think went under the radar a little bit too much. So we're very interested in that sense. Same with Cucurella and Badiashile, how they're going to deal with that with that. Yeah, their left-hand side, the right-hand side of Liverpool. But I'm very surprised about Benoit Badashile's impact. I think he's come in and he's actually done a very good job. So long may that continue, and hopefully he can stay fit, because having him is less pressure on Cucurella, less pressure on Hato, who can still be coming in as rotation for either of those players during that Liverpool game tomorrow. We could even see a Hato start, but I think personally I would go with Benoit Badashile over Hato. Even though I think Hato's played well, you can see he's adjusting to the league and adjusting to this team. I think it'll be very, very interesting to see how that works. So I'm not Benoit Badashile's biggest admirer, and you can go back and watch my videos. I've wanted him out of this club for a long time. However, I always give credit where it's due, and I have said that he has improved. He's not completely convinced me, but I'm definitely not on the get out of my club now. It is definitely swaying to more that he can actually come in and do a job, and when he isn't making mistakes and he is feeling confident, he's a very good centre-back. So I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding Benoit Badashile in terms of the recent performance against Benfica. Do you feel like he can play an important role for Chelsea this season in the absence of Levi Colwill? Do you feel like he can step into that Colwill role? Because I was very surprised by his line-breaking passes and that sort of Colwill role that he was kind of moving into against Benfica. So very curious to know your thoughts. He then talks about the Liverpool team news and he says Cole is still out, we have Trev suspended, 7 or 8 players out for tomorrow's game. And then on Cole Palmer, he says, I don't have any update at the moment, we have a meeting this week. He then talks about Estevao in the number 10 role and he says, we consider all of our players to give them the minutes in all positions. Estevao reminds me of a lot of Cole when Cole was with me in the under-23s at City. Cole's path has been similar to Estevao's path in terms of starting wide as a winger and then slowly you can move inside. In the Premier League, if you want to play in the middle, you need to be physically prepared. Now I find this very interesting. Firstly, the injury update. We need to find out more about Cole Palmer. Having a meeting this week. Hopefully he can be back after the international break, because that is going to be a huge plus for this Chelsea squad of just having him available because of how good he is. In terms of Trevor's suspension, obviously that's got to be served out. And we've also got 7 or 8 players that are out, which we were well aware of. We also now know that Caicedo, Pedro and Fernandes are playing through injury, so hopefully they can be okay for this game before they go on international duty if they are called up. So that's just very worrying, and hopefully we can just get some constant updates and kind of have some reassurance that we're going to have some of our key players back as sooner rather than later. But when Enzo talks about Estevao in the 10, a lot of people are screaming for this, and I'd love to see Estevao in the 10. And I also like him out wide. I just want to see him playing football. He's 18, and he's taken this league by storm in terms of, yes, he's not physically the most demanding, but his skill set and how he's fearless and the confidence that oozes from every time he gets on the pitch, trying that flair and trying to create something all the time, not scared to beat a man and trying to create something for other players. I absolutely love. He's just got that Jogo Bonito to him, which we've massively missed in this team. And I actually like seeing Cole Palmer and Estevao in the same starting 11 because the connection they have that we saw in pre-season and glimpses through the season where they have shared minutes is frightening, and that's only going to get better. But I do understand what Maresca's saying. Obviously, he has an insight by having Cole Palmer at the under-23s and, comparing their paths. I feel like Estevao will be very, very similar in that sense. He's better as a right winger, but he can play in that 10. And we've seen times where he's over on the left, he's in the 10, he's on the right while he's on the pitch because he just kind of moves with the flow of the game. And I absolutely love seeing that. And Maresca loves that. He wants those front four to be interchangeable, like fluid football that can kind of play in each other's positions. And we're going to see more of that. So I also really like how Enzo's not putting the pressure on Estevao and just forcing him into this team and giving him loads of minutes and putting loads of pressure on his shoulders. But it's also quite frustrating from a selfish fan point of view of I just want to see him play more football. I feel like he's going to play an important role in this Liverpool game. I feel like he may start. I definitely know he will get minutes for sure. And it'll be interesting to see how things kind of evolve and adapt. I would personally play him in the 10 against Liverpool. I think we need that little bit of flair. I'm going to go into our predicted 11 a little bit later in the video, but that's just me personally, and I'll go into it a bit more. But yeah, I quite like what Enzo Maresca is saying about Estevao in the 10, and it makes a lot of sense when he explains it like that. There's a lot of logic to it. He is young, he is developing, and he will become that 10 over time. But right now, he is that right winger, and we know that he was promised by the board or whoever signed him specifically that he was promised that 10 role because he wants to play it. And I just feel like they're biding their time and trying to ease him into this. There's also a lot of fans that have been telling me in the comments, whether it's here or over on TikTok, they just don't feel that Estevao's going to be here for very long. They're using Chelsea as a stepping stone. He's going to go to a big club like Madrid or Barcelona, etc. I think that's very interesting. Because a lot of people are also saying about Cole Palmer, like, if we don't keep him happy, he's going to go. And I totally get it. If you can't keep your players happy, they are going to go. And when you come to the Chelsea, who are right now the world champions, under the microscope all the time, it is a stepping stone to go into bigger and better places if needed. But I feel confident that we're going to keep him. He's going to want to develop here because the fans are going to love him. We already love him. And as soon as he starts hitting the ground running, look, we're going to get some massive, massive money if he is ever to move. But he's locked down for a long time. And I want to enjoy him for the time that he's here, I don't think we were expecting to keep Eden Hazard for as long as we did, but he basically spent a long, long time here. And again, I just got very lucky to be able to enjoy his career at Chelsea. And I feel like Estevao is going to do the same. But I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding the injury, suspension, your thoughts on Cole Palmer's injury. Do you think he'll be back after the international break? Do you think it's going to be a little bit longer? And Enzo Maresca's thoughts on Estevao in the 10. Would you play him in the 10 now? Or would you think it makes sense to bide our time, as frustrating as it is, bide our time, play him on that right wing, give him the right minutes, and then let him drift in over time when it becomes more natural to him? He then goes on to talk about Marc Guiu not playing yet, and he says Marc is working well. This week he has worked very, very good, much better compared to the first weeks he was back. He then goes on to answer the question if Marc Guiu's development is being risked. He said, I don't think so. He is back with a big club like Chelsea. Again, he is going to get minutes with us, no doubt. The development for a young player is not all about games. It is also about training. He is working with us. This is really interesting because a lot of us, myself included, are screaming for Marc Guiu to get minutes. We saw him play last year in the Conference League and some of the cup games and whatever, and we could see the raw talent and we could see how eager he was and how hungry he is as a player. Obviously, he goes to Sunderland on a very, very short loan where he gets a goal in the EFL Cup in the second round. And, even at Sunderland, he was the third choice striker, so it was going to be limited minutes, but it's development. I agree with what Enzo's saying in terms of it's not just about game time, but at the same time, you look at the squad and you think, why are we playing Tyreek George as a 9 every single game? Well, you have the likes of Marc Guiu on the bench. Now, I covered this yesterday, where if Marc Guiu does play a minute for us, that means we can't loan him out later in the season because you can't play for 3 teams in one single season. So I feel like he is literally there as an emergency resource, where if we have any more injuries in that position, he has to play. And we sacrifice that loan in January, and he plays for Chelsea. But at the same time, while he's not playing, he is training with around the first team all the time. And I feel like he is still going to be developing. But we just want to see him on the pitch, getting them minutes and actually doing something for Chelsea, because we just know he's got such a raw ability. And we want to see him go as far as possible at Chelsea. I think he has a strong potential of being part of Chelsea's future as someone that leads the line in a number of years. As long as we keep him, don't sell him on for profit, and he does develop and does well with the opportunities he gets. So I just thought it was very interesting in what Maresca's saying. He's working better than he was last week. This could all stem from the fact that Maresca's like, he's just not ready yet. If I put him on the pitch right now, he's a liability compared to the players I have available who know the system, who are at a different fitness level, who want to be playing or know how to play the way that we want to play as a unit. He might just be lacking in that sense. He might not be fully fit in terms of what Maresca wants from him. He might not be up to speed with the types of football and patterns of play and tactics that he wants him to deliver on the pitch. It could just be the fact that he is that emergency resource. We won't really know, but I just find it interesting that Maresca's being very positive about it and saying he will get minutes with us, no doubt, which could be a signifier that he could play against Liverpool. I don't think he'll start. But it also means that we can go back to that theory as if he doesn't play, he won't get that loan in January. So it's still kind of like, will he, won't he? But it's nice for him to come out and say he's working a lot better than last week. So maybe it's a case that he's just not ready. He's just not at the level that Enzo needs him to be right now, but he is going to be utilised later on in the season. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. I would personally just like to see him get game time, because he surely has to be better at 9 as Tyreek George is, because Marc Guiu is a number 9 naturally. Yes, he's very raw, but he is a 9. It's more natural to him, right? Tyreek George is a winger, so he's going to naturally play better on that left-hand side. So that's just an angry, frustrated fan's opinion. I would just want to see him get minutes. I think he's a fantastic striker. I'm not obviously saying he's going to come on there and be like Thierry Henry. I obviously am well aware he is very raw. He's very young. He's not the finished article, but hey, when needs must, I feel like we have him. We should be using him as and when, because the whole January window where we loan him out again, for me, that would just be really, really stupid that we've recalled him, not used him, and then sent him out on loan again. You might as well have just kept him on loan. But then at the other side of it is, if we have any more injury crisis in that 9 position, then he is that emergency resource. So bit of a rock and a hard place situation, but at least Maresca is saying that he is going to be used. It's not hindering his development, because he's in and around the team that he wants to be a part of. And he's also saying that he's working better than he did last week. So very curious to know your thoughts down below regarding Marc Guiu. Would you just play him anyway and just try and speed run his development? Or do you think Enzo Maresca's kind of just being patient with him for the right reasons, that he's not actually up to standard yet, and that's why we haven't seen him kick ball? Kieran Gill has reported that Hato's versatility is one reason that Chelsea decided not to sign a new centre-back. Chelsea felt there was no obvious upgrades on the market, and the Mail understands that stance is unlikely to change in January unless injuries become so severe. Now, I thought this was going to happen. I've actually said this as the window was closing into the early stages of the season, first few games. I feel like Chelsea are going to sit back and monitor. They're going to monitor this squad. They're going to deal with the fact that we're very thin in that centre-back position. The loss of Levi Colwill, no one going in and recruiting a world-class centre-back. Maresca publicly come out and said he wanted a goalkeeper and centre-back. We didn't go and get one. We've got Hato, who can play left-sided centre-back and is primarily rotation for Cucurella in that left-back position. And finally, Cucurella can get some rest when needed, right? Once Hato's fully integrated, which is great. But I had a feeling that this was going to be one of the reasons and why Chelsea didn't go in for a centre-back. They're going to sit back and they're going to monitor things until January. And if we still got a load of suspensions, we still got even more injuries in that centre-back role, we're going to have no choice to go in and get a centre-back. But you're going to play January window tax, which is an extra percentage because it's midway through the season. And if you're taking a key player of someone's defence, the heart of the defence from someone else, they're going to want a premium for that. I honestly feel like Chelsea should have gone and got a centre-back. It's an easier solution to deal with later, like next season when Levi comes back, than it is struggling for 6 months, not picking up points, and then potentially ruining the season in the second half because you're like, well, we should have racked up points if we'd have got a centre-back. I know it's kind of hindsight and if, would, should, but whatever. But personally, I think it's an easier solution to get rid of a centre-back next summer and incorporate that new signing this summer than it is to just kind of sit back and wait and just kind of hope and pray that we don't get any more injuries. Hope and pray that there's no red cards or suspensions, because obviously we are seeing the sort of worst side of just hoping and praying. But we have got more injuries. We have had a run of red cards. How often is it that, Tosin has a calf problem, Wesley Fofana gets concussion from his own keeper that caused it, and then Trev goes and gets sent off. We three main centre-backs who are hoping on, staying fit and being consistent have made so many individual errors, been sent off, and are all injured. So, yeah, it just makes things laughable, in my opinion, laughable. But it makes sense as to why this has come out saying that, Hato can play that position too, so we don't need to go get a new centre-back. I just think it's very naive from the board of directors. Not that I think that we should just go out and buy everyone. Obviously have restraint, and I'm not, deluded. But at the same time, I don't know. It's management. It's management of the squad and being like, well, they're not available all season. And, Josh is young. He's going to come through, but we can't put a lot of pressure on him. You got Trevor, Tosin. Badashile was injured at the time. We didn't really know how long he was going to be out for. So I don't know. I just feel like this is what I've been saying, that Chelsea was just going to sit back and go, right, let's just analyse and see what we can do in January. So it'll be very interesting to see if we actually go in for anyone in January or not. Same with the striker position, in my opinion. Will Amiga be called in the January window? Does Guiu play between now and then because we absolutely need him? Does Guiu go back on loan and Amiga comes in and replaces him? Who knows? Does Delap come back in November, or does he get a setback? Does he come back earlier? Who knows? Does João Pedro manage to play with all these games that has just been heaped on him and loads of pressure while he's currently playing through injury? Does he continue, or does he just burn out? Who knows? We'll find out in the next episode of Chelsea, the drama of Chelsea, or the daily reality show of Chelsea FC. But I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding the centre-back and this news that's come out in terms of Hato. Would you have just gone and got one anyway because it's easier to deal with it next season? Or do you think Chelsea have made the right decision here and gone, right, let's just utilise who we have, sit back, analyse, and then go and attack it in the window in January? Very curious to know your thoughts. So now it's time to predict the Chelsea start 11 to face Liverpool Saturday evening in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge. Now, I feel like this is going to be relatively short because we have some very limited options at certain positions. Starting off in goal, we're going Robert Sanchez, who I actually think has played very well this season, barring the situations and mistakes, other than Man United game, obviously, but the mistakes that have been caused with the back line. They've not been very cohesive, but in terms of individual performances, overall, he's been pretty good. Left back, obviously, Cucurella. I mean, I just don't see Hato starting over him in this Liverpool game, and I feel like we are going to try and invert Cucurella to make that box midfield to then push back the Liverpool midfield. I feel like that's going to be the best option. Left centre-back, Badashile. The only issue I have with if we were to push Cucurella up is Badashile then becomes the left-sided centre-back rather than the central centre-back to play that Levi Colwill role. It actually would move on to the right-sided centre-back. So we could see an inverting from the right-hand side. So Badashile can stay that central centre-back and Cucurella the left-sided centre-back. Who knows? Enzo Maresca likes flexibility. That is also an option. The other centre-back is going to be Ashimpong. as we are very limited on resources, and I don't think Hato and we're not going to play two left-sided centre-backs. We're not going to play Badashile and Hato. If we do, that's genuinely going to blow my mind. There's a big opportunity for Achampong to step in, and have a really good game against Liverpool. It would do wonders for his confidence, and look, he's a fantastic defender. So hopefully he can come in and absolutely smash it. Right back, Reece James, who has been called up for international duty, and he is staying fit, and one of the longest stints of fitness for him, which is fantastic. We could potentially see Gusto, but I feel like Reece James makes sense, because then if we do invert Reece James into midfield, like I said, it shifts across, and Badashiles at central centre-back. Achampong is in the most comfortable position as a right centre-back or / right back, and then Cucurella the left-sided centre-back / left back. I feel like that may be stronger than inverting Cucurella and having Reece James as the right centre-back. I mean, obviously that is a stronger side, but he's best as a right back. We know this. He's world class as a right back. Get him overlapping if needed. But that's what I feel would be the starting five, the keeper and the back four. In the midfield, I feel like we're going to have to make Caicedo play, even if he's playing through injury. And I feel like Enzo Fernandez will be the other one, because Andre Santos, Asugo, Lavia is also, he's back, but I don't think he's going to start. He'll get limited minutes. So I feel like those two are going to be in that double pivot. And hopefully they can stay fit. I'm just hoping and praying that they can stay fit. Because I tell you what, as a partnership, once they get if we're locking down the opponent's midfield, these guys absolutely ball out. And Caicedo is consistently just unbelievable. We know this, right? Left-hand side, going Garnacho. I think Garnacho is going to have a very good game against Liverpool. And do you know why? Because I don't think Liverpool are going to sit back in a low block. They're going to want to play their football. They're going to come at us. I feel like there's going to be a lot of space in and behind. It could actually be a very good opportunity for someone like Jamie Gittins to get in and behind. They're both pace merchants. They both like to get in and behind on that left-hand side. But I just feel like Garnacho is at such a sharper position right now than Jamie Gittins. And I think that's fair to say. In that number 10, we could see... I feel, this is where it gets confusing, because you could have Pedro Neto on the right-hand side, you could have Estevao on the 10, you could have João Pedro as the 9 or the 10. I feel like João Pedro plays best in the 10, but I feel like he may start as the 9. So we could see potentially Buonanotte play in the 10. We could see Buonanotte play there, but I honestly feel like we should be starting Estevao in a game like this. And like I've mentioned many times, Estevao is not in here, so it is unfortunately the German goalkeeper for Dortmund. But that is actually our Estevao in as a placeholder. And on the right-hand side, I think it will be Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto, who I think has just been fantastic this season. I think he goes under the radar. I think right now he's our best winger by a country mile. But yeah, I feel like that front three is very fluid. It's got a lot of pace. We've got solutions in terms of like getting out and hitting on the transition. And also flair with Estevao. And then as the 9, I think João Pedro. Because what we could actually see is a link up here between Pedro and Estevao and the 10 and the 9. And again, that one could be dropping deep, one could be pushing forward, etc. It also allows Enzo to push up as that second 10. And then you've got the likes of Estevao and Enzo in those two 10 roles. I think that absolutely cooks, personally. But it'd be very interesting to see who's available, who actually makes it into the starting 11 in terms of fitness, what Enzo's thinking. We could see some absolutely wild decisions tomorrow. Who knows? But this is the starting 11 that I would choose. So that's the latest Chelsea news and the predicted starting 11. Do you agree with my lineup or do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported and the predicted lineup down below in the comments. I love having a conversation with you guys. If you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that. You're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.